Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. Today, I'm speaking with Gina Homolka, a great mind behind the award-winning blog Skinnytaste. Since her start in 2008, she's truly revolutionized how we think about cooking healthy and family-friendly meals that never sacrifice taste. Gina's food mantra really revolves around one simple idea: using seasonal, clean ingredients married with mindful portion control. You'll find this philosophy beautifully woven into the pages of her best-selling cookbooks, including her latest masterpiece, Skinnytaste Simple, easy, healthy recipes with 7 ingredients or fewer, a cookbook. But that's not all. Gina is a #1 New York Times bestseller, an IACP award finalist, and a James Beard finalist. Her work has been featured in Fitness Magazine, Better Homes and Gardens, Oprah.com, and Good Morning America, just to name a few. Over the past several years, Gina has fostered a massive online community with a staggering 2 million followers on Instagram and over 6 million devoted fans on Facebook. So with all that said, be prepared to feel inspired, entertained, and hungry as we dive into the colorful world of Skinnytaste. And there she is. I almost got carried away with myself there for a minute, but good morning. How are
Hi,
you?
thank you. Thanks for having me, Kirk.
Oh gosh, super, super excited. Thanks for taking time out of the day. I like to always well, we've been chatting a little bit before the show, so we know that there's little puppies rolling around.
Yeah.
So number one, always a big, big thank you. So appreciative because we know how busy you are. I can't even, fathom, 6 million fans on Facebook. We'll talk about that in a second. And a big shout out to Erica, who now has connected us with you and our friend Dan Pelosi, who was on the show recently. So
Yeah.
to kick off, I've got this down. You live on Long Island, not in Long Island. My
Correct.
my wife, I met my wife when she lived on Long Island. She was from Ohio originally, but she got it down. And boy, if I did not get that right. And so you're there with your family. I always
Yes.
like to check in, the personal stuff, right? I've got a million questions for you, but I like to check in on the seasons and the weather. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, and it could not have been, I don't want to jinx it. It's been the best fall season ever. It's chilly in the morning. The sun is bright and hot in the afternoon. Then the evenings are lovely. What's going on the East Coast? Is it
Today we're
good,
having
bad?
it's a beautiful sunny day. It's been raining every weekend this whole fall so far. But hopefully that's going to change because today is actually beautiful. It's like 70s. It's warmer than normal. And it's gorgeous
Oh,
out.
wow, 70 degrees already.
Yeah, it's a
Okay, wow.
beautiful day. It's definitely a little warmer than normal for this time of year.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. I was in with the family. We were in Boston, Maine, and just kind of playing around in July. Now, other than the mosquitoes that are the size of small birds, I could not believe how beautiful the East Coast was this summer.
It's really
Just
pretty.
really, really, really pretty. So our podcast listeners are well aware, and it's always really important that we start our conversations about you, if you will indulge. Your inspiring story, your background. It sounds like you come from a multicultural background.
Mhm.
Your father is Czech and your mother is from Colombia. So can you tell us about what the kitchens were like growing up? Was there always a beautiful aroma coming from the stoves?
So my parents both came from different countries. They were immigrants here when they met. And, my father, European, he also lived in Brazil for many years, and my mom, Colombian. I definitely grew up with a lot of multicultural cuisines in my house. And they both loved cooking. Everything was always made from scratch. There was nothing wasted. We ate very unusual things compared to most Americans. I grew up eating tripe and tongue and all these things, and it wasn't negotiable. We had to eat whatever's on the plate. I actually love those things now, so I don't mind, so it's funny how like we grew up eating it, and it's something I don't cook personally, but I do enjoy it. And yeah, my father loved cooking. He would cook on the weekends, his Czech dishes, and my mom always made her Latin dishes, but also she took cooking classes. She loves cooking. She took cooking classes and would make lasagna and would bake, and she was always in the kitchen cooking. So we were always a part of it, my brother and I. helping on the weekends, helping my dad make schnitzel or my mom make lasagna. So we were definitely a part of that. And it was really very few nights we had takeout or went out to dinner. Everything was always home cooked.
I love that. And isn't it interesting? A similar story. My folks came over from Germany in the 60s. So a lot of schnitzel, a lot of braised items, right? Not a
Yeah.
ton of color on the plate, right? You
No,
had
that's
your
true.
it kind of
No,
was what it was. And you're absolutely right. It's changed. I have 4 children, and it's interesting how, you have to be, at least in our house, we're super flexible. The kitchen just it becomes sort of a cafe in the morning, right? Or in the afternoon, or even
right.
in the evening. Just everybody kind of gets what they want, even though there is a main course. But back in those days, that's what's on the table,
That was
and
it.
that was it, right? What
Yep.
was the so you have this food from your mother that I imagine was a little bit more colorful, right? Vibrant, maybe even spicier,
Yeah.
juxtaposed against, a pretty blah
Yeah.
braised schnitzel.
It
How
was
did that
definitely
all
very
come
different.
together?
Yeah. Like my father's dishes were like dumplings and roasted duck or roast, he did a lot of roasted vegetables, a lot of things with sauerkraut and,
Yeah, yeah.
stews and lots of soups. And my mom also made a lot of soups too, because that's also very Colombian culture. So we had soup almost every single night, whether it was a main dish or a starter. So soup was always on the table, which it was really actually an interesting way to get more vegetables in your diet. I'd never really thought about that until later in life. And then it was always a main course. So yeah, it was
Kind of a
definitely.
sneaky way to get vegetables into your diet, right?
It was exactly. My mom, like Colombian food is really not spicy like Mexican food, but definitely has more flavors and more, yeah, just different flavors. Lots of rice, lots of beans. So
Yeah,
just different
yeah.
kind of cooking.
Well, you were spoiled,
I don't think I
nonetheless,
realized how spoiled I was at the time
right?
because I wanted the
100%.
fast food. I wanted to try raviolios like my friends had, but never got to. So
People
it wasn't
always
until
laugh.
later that I actually tried that stuff that I realized, oh, my parents' food is so much better.
You were blessed. You were blessed. I can remember the stories. We lived above the bakery, growing up in Chicago. And so I would always go down to the bakery on my way to school. And, my mom would put, I'd have like a Black Forest tort, right? Like in a little, a little,
Yeah.
shell. And I would get to school. And to your point, I'm older. So kids were opening snack pack or hunt, the hunt snack pack
Oh,
and
yes.
the puddings and peanut butter and jelly and where I had liverwurst on spread on rye bread and things like that. It was awkward, growing up, right? Because you look different, your food was different, your clothing was a little different as an immigrant. But I agree with you 100%. I wouldn't change it for the world. I think it
It's
was
what
a
molded us.
blessing in disguise. Yeah,
It's true.
yeah,
It's what made us who we are.
absolutely. So how did we'll get to so much more in a bit, but I'm just curious, thinking back on what you didn't know that you were going to be so grateful for. How did that experience inspire you, do you think,
Mhm.
for this love of cooking that you have?
I really love to eat. And I've always loved cooking. Well, let me put it this way. I've always loved food. I used to in high school get like Gourmet magazine and all my friends had fashion magazines. I had Gourmet and I would look at them and I would look at all these restaurants that I wanted to go to one day. Of course, I couldn't, I wasn't going with my parents. I was in high school. Um, but I knew that if I could at least cook the foods myself, I could enjoy them. So it was really about loving food and then trying to figure out how to make what I love. So that's really how it started. And also, my mother started going to college later on in life when I was in high school. So she would leave at night. It was night school. And she would like leave me with having to finish dinner. And I'd be like, what?
You have to eat. Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
how to do this. But so that really got me having to figure it out. So she would just tell me as she was out the door how to make rice or how to do this. So it got me not afraid to be in the kitchen. And then I would find foods that I loved and try to figure out ways to make it or find a recipe to recreate an Italian dish I loved. So I think it was just having them to ask questions on how to make something and then having the desire to want to eat certain things that really inspired me to want to cook.
Yeah, I love the independence there that came at a young age. You mentioned in an interview that I read, and I quote, "I cooked my way through many cookbooks when I was younger and still learning. I don't think I've always been creative. I think that came later." Would you mind elaborating on that a little bit? I'd love to know sort of what the catalyst for the creativity, like when did that kick in?
Yeah, I feel like I learned how to cook with my parents and with cookbooks and maybe even some television shows at the time. So really you just follow the recipe and you get the basics down. But once you really know the basics of a recipe, then you can start playing around with it. And I've always been one to find ways to streamline recipes because, I worked and my mom's recipes are usually a little more time consuming. They could take, 2 days, some of her recipes. So I would always try to figure out, well, how can I make this quicker? How can I make this faster? How can I make this easier? And then when I started doing Weight Watchers, but before I was getting married, that's when I started getting creative on how can I make this healthier? How can I make this lighter? So that's really where the creativity came into play when I started actually creating recipes and writing them down and then putting them in a place where they lived and so that I wouldn't forget how to make it.
It's interesting that you say that, and I offer this with all the love to my wife, but she's a great cook, and there's kind of an ongoing joke in the house that people come over a lot. We love to entertain, and if people are enjoying, they usually do the meal. I always have to add that, gosh, I'm so glad that you've all enjoyed this because when you come over again, and Gretchen makes the exact same thing, it won't taste the same.
Yeah.
She doesn't write anything down.
Yeah.
She forgets things, she adds things. And
that's normal, right? I feel like
and it's okay. Yeah.
My husband used to tell me that was really good. Write it down. So I had a book before I had a blog. I had a book with all my recipes. You're like, I want you to make it exactly the same way next time. So I'd write down exactly what I did so I wouldn't forget because otherwise you could make the same dish over and over and it will come out different if you don't really follow your own recipe.
And that's the big challenge, right? That with young students that perhaps are going to go into the restaurant industry. And it's hard, right? Because when you go to a restaurant over and over and over again, and you bring friends and you have that one special dish or many, you want it to be the same. You want it to be exactly the same. But the reality is it's okay if it's a little different every single time. Hey, I'm going to use coconut milk this time, and I'm going to use, chicken stock this other time, depending on who's coming over. And in my mind, it's okay. Don't be
okay. I think
so hard on yourself, right?
In a restaurant, it might be a challenge if you go there for that one dish.
Yeah.
It's different. It's a little, sometimes it's a little disappointing unless, that's where a special comes in, right? Where they maybe tweak it.
Yeah. So I have to ask. So you have a graphic design background, which suggests to me that there's some artistry there, right? There's that creativity. So I'm just curious. Did you always think that might be your end all? That would be your career. I'm going to be an artist, a graphic designer, or in the back of your mind, was there always a bigger plan or a different plan or a plan that could combine the two, cooking and artistry? No. Okay.
So when I went to art school and did graphic design and then wound up doing digital photo retouching for many years. For 20 years, I was a photo retoucher in New York City, commuted every day. I would see older folks on the train commuting. You could tell they've been doing that commute for 30, 40 years. And I thought that was going to be me one day. Because it's the same old, commute every day.
I'm tired hearing that. I'm just,
you know what? I didn't mind the commute.
Yeah.
It's actually very relaxing on the Long Island Railroad because it's quiet and you can read a book. So I used to read a lot of books. I also really loved being able to check in and check out and not have to, go home and not really be stressed about my job. It was just, I did what I had to do when I was there. I gave it my all and I left, and then I had my home life. So when I started doing this website, I really didn't do it as a career change move. I was just doing it for fun. I started a blog because I was looking for recipes. I was doing Weight Watchers, and I was looking for recipes that were healthy back in 2007 and 2008. And everything I found online was like really super processed. The recipes, they had no photos. There was just really nothing beautiful out there, and nothing that I felt like I could cook at home that I would enjoy. And that's when I was realizing, well, I'm just going to take my recipes and try to figure out how to make them lighter. And at the time, blogs were new. And I remember asking my husband about, like, how does a person start a blog? So I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to just start a blog. I'm going to put all these recipes on a blog. I'm going to try to figure out how to take pictures of my food. And it was really just a passion project that I was doing. And then actually, I remember when I first got my first comment on a recipe, I was like, wow, people are making the recipes and they like them, so it was really something I did for fun. It was never intended to be a career. I would have never imagined that I'd be in this place right now.
And serendipitously, that's probably why it worked out so magically, because you were really casual, almost just
There was no pressure.
no pressure at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Less than intentional. So you said 2008. So in 2008, you had this idea, quote, to slim down some of your favorite recipes. So I have to say, as I was, looking around your website, and I don't know if this is your mission statement, but I'm turning it into your mission statement.
Okay.
I love this one little area where it says exercise plus a well-balanced diet plus good sleep
So important.
equals a happy life.
Everything.
And it's really, really hard, right, to do all three. But really, all three are kind of simple. Just exercise a little bit, have a balanced diet. So how did this thought about, and there's so many great analogies here, right? And even metaphors. How did this thought about slimming down some of your favorite recipes transpire? In many ways, it's brilliant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know if we think about that in the restaurant business, right?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Like, how do we just
in fact, there were so many
down?
years when I was actually starting Weight Watchers that I was like, I just wish there was a restaurant out there that I could just go and know exactly what I'm getting.
And customize it if you need to, right? Yeah.
If any of your followers are listening to this, maybe since they're all in the restaurant industry, I think it would do so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you have to kind of take it upon yourself to do it. And yes, there's a lot of places where you can buy meal prep recipe, meal prep food that's, macro friendly, but not really so creative. It's just like grilled chicken and some sweet potato. It's kind of boring. I like food. I like to eat. I don't want to just eat I don't want to just eat just to consume and have the proper amount of calories. I want to enjoy my meal because it's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love food. I love eating. I love going out to eat. So yeah,
that's kind of your international background too. That's the way it is in Europe, right?
Exactly.
People
you love by giving a person a meal. You cook for them.
And you're always ready to cook for them.
Yes.
Always ready, right? The worst thing in the world is, you call your friends and you're like, hey, we're coming over for, company tonight. And they say, oh, can you pick up a pizza or something? Really? I mean, the way we grew up was at a moment's notice, you could have a pork roast going and some apple strudel ready to 100%. Be served, right?
Yeah. My mom's house, even if you showed up right now, even though she doesn't have her kids living with her, there's food there for anybody.
You would be fed. You would be fed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's important. That's important. I think I will say a big kudos to the farm community that we engage with a lot at Escoffier. I think that's a similar mentality. You walk into a farmer's home and guess what? There's food, even if they have to go out to the field and pull it out of the ground.
What could be better than that? Yes.
There's not much. So then you launched Skinnytaste, which is now, congratulations, an award-winning blog. Unbelievable. It gets millions, in terms of traffic every month.
Yeah.
In the early stages, it's a tough question. You're super humble, but could you fathom this type of growth? Did you even think about it?
No, I could not have imagined this type of growth. I remember the first time I got stumbled, and I don't know if you know what stumble upon is. I've been doing this so long. This was before Twitter. Stumble Upon was, I
Yeah.
guess, social media
Yeah. I
where
remember.
if somebody liked your post and it got stumbled, you got a lot of traffic. I remember getting like 7,000 hits in one day. I'm like, what? Where did all this traffic come from? What happened? So no, I could never have imagined getting the type of traffic I get now. But I'm on the other side of the screen, so it doesn't feel any different on my end, whether I have 10 followers or a million. It's really no different. I'm still just trying to put out good content.
Yeah. No, no, well said. Again, the humility is so appreciated.
Thank you.
I do have some questions that I think they're a little probing, but it's important
Yeah.
because students raise their hand and they see you and they see others like you and they wonder, can that be them as well, right? So growing, scaling, right? Is there a secret to scaling? Because now, so all of a sudden, right, the information or the interest is pouring in. So
Yeah.
then you're motivated, right? Then I've got to grow this thing, right? So
Right.
is there a secret sauce to the scaling part of it? That's where people get hung up in business in general.
Yeah. I feel like timing was right for me.
Uh-huh.
I filled a gap. There was no healthy websites out there. There was very few. It wasn't a thing. I used to love going on Food Gawker and Taste Spotting, and there were all these beautiful, indulgent websites with gorgeous food photography, which always was very appealing to me as, I guess, a graphic designer. That was just so beautiful, but none of them were healthy. So I just thought, well, how maybe I could make my healthy recipes beautiful and feel like these other recipes. So I think I filled uh, there was a need for it. I didn't realize it would grow so much, but
Mhm.
also just really I've always been passionate about it. I was doing it. I was spending so much time on it before I was even making any income from it. I was just doing it because I loved it. I loved getting comments on recipes. People were telling me I was helping them on their weight loss journey. And that's really when I felt like I had to keep doing this. I was making a difference in people's lives. But I always embraced social media as it has, everything that has popped up, Twitter, Facebook, like I just jump on as everything comes out just because it's really important to just jump in when something new is out because it's the best, easiest, fastest way to grow is to just be one of the first. So I think just starting Instagram, not really paying any attention to like making it perfect, just posting my life or my recipes, and it just started growing. Same thing with Facebook. It just grew. But I would just say it was just more about passion and just doing it every day.
And that's clearly what attracts people, right? The simplicity and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about obstacles though.
Yeah, there's lots of obstacles on the way because I didn't know what I was doing. I created a website, had no knowledge whatsoever, didn't know anything about search engine optimization. I didn't know how to photograph food. So I had to learn all that along the way. And I would just go online and I would Google everything. I taught myself so much when I first
Really?
started.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I used to come home from work. I had a full-time job. I worked in the city, came home, cooked dinner that I was going to post on my blog. I had to like beat the light because you need to use natural light when you photograph food.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
had to photograph it really before the sun went down. And then my family would be waiting for their food, would be sitting there cold by the time they got it because I had to get the shot. So there were definitely a lot of challenges along the way. But it's kind of fun because it's part of, how I got where I am now.
How you grow. How has your role, if I can ask specifically, changed in the company over time? You
Yeah.
were you
So
were the company for the longest time, right?
I was doing this part-time and was only working at nights on it, working on I'd go on the train and I would work on it on the train when I'd be commuting. And then when I had my daughter, and that was like 3 years later, 2009. So I started this in 2007. 2009, I had her. So 2 years later, I decided not to go back to work. And that was a tough decision, but I also knew that this was doing really well. So why not take a chance? And then I was able to put all my time into it. And so therefore I was able to really, make this thing grow and just dedicate all my time. So yeah, now I have help. I have, my aunt works with me in the kitchen. I sub out the work that I'm not great at, like the photography, so that I can spend more time in the kitchen or doing the things that I love to do.
No, that's great. Is it hard sometimes? Because you,
It's always hard.
yeah.
It's really hard when I'm working on books, because
Yeah.
working on a book plus maintaining a website and social media, it's just a lot of work. But I love it. I've done 7 books. So at this point,
That's the key. You love it.
yeah,
You love it. And
I
that's a
do.
great message to students or anyone who just loves to cook, or whatever they're passionate about.
Right.
You've got
Like
to
if it
love
feels
it.
like a chore, you shouldn't do it. You should
Well,
really
a
enjoy it.
hundred percent, a
Yeah.
100%. So I'm curious, 2007 forward, loaded question. I'm curious what role social media has played in this success. Obviously, a big role, but how's that role changed? Because social media today and what it was, in 2007, big difference, right?
Yeah. Well, it's constantly changing, and you have to just not resist when they change. And it's frustrating when the
Oh, good,
algorithm slow
good
down.
advice. Good
And
advice.
and sometimes, all of a sudden they're favoring video instead of photos, and now you have to learn how to do videos. And so I've always just, instead of complaining about it or be frustrated, I would just learn it and figure out how to do it. And actually,
Embrace. Yeah.
it's really great to constantly be learning and evolving. So I don't think of it as a bad thing. I just kind of find I like a challenge, I think. I must love a challenge. I like a challenge. And it is fun to, see yourself getting better at this new challenge that you have. But it brings me so much traffic that it's really so important to, keep up with social media.
That's great advice. And as I was looking at your site, even before we planned the chat, because it's important for us to be up to speed on everything that's going on out there. I have this sense that your true passion is the recipe development. You sort of mentioned that earlier too.
It
And
is.
there's another quote I saw from an interview. Can you tell that I've done some research?
You're
I've been
really good.
been
That's
stalking.
amazing. You're really great at finding all this
and
information.
and and Noel helps so much with this too. I mean, we get excited. Here's what you said, quote, I also love the creative process, coming up with new ideas and getting the responses when I post something new and seeing how people react to my new recipe. So simple, but incredibly powerful.
It's so
I'm
fun.
I think what students would want to know, what listeners would want to know is what's the process, and I'm going to say unique process
Mhm.
for coming up with new recipes,
Yeah.
because I mean, you mentioned Google earlier. So many people in this world probably Google whatever it is they need, change the oil in the car, or what school
Right.
should I send my kids to, right?
Yeah.
Type of thing. But what recipe development is different. It's personal. It needs that reflection of your technique, your skills, right? And then
Mhm.
it comes out, your personality comes out. So I'm curious what your process is for developing, and without giving anything away, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it could be so many different things, because it could be a meal out at an amazing restaurant that I want to recreate. It could be traveling to a different country and being inspired by this new culture and wanting to recreate a dish that I ate on my travels. Sometimes some of my audience asks me to make a recipe over or make a recipe lighter. So I love those challenges. Those are always really well received. My husband, sometimes craves things that are really not healthy. And so I'll say, okay, actually, that's not a bad idea. Like a giant meatball. He had asked me to make a giant meatball once, and I was like, maybe I'll make it with turkey, ground turkey, and I'll do it in the oven, and let's see how this turns out. And it's a really popular recipe on my site. So his ideas, which are usually super indulgent, me recreating them and making them a little healthier, are always fun. So it's just so many things. It just could be like whatever's in season at the time, like, a new way to cook delicata squash. It's whatever. It's so many things. It's not one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the subtle kudos to your husband there too, by the way. He wanted a meatball. So from again, not to divulge all of your secrets, but if you had to share, or if you could share, just a couple of tips. Again, like I said before, some of our aspiring cooks and our culinary students, they think about these sorts of paths. I guess I would ask, how do you maximize flavor and nutrition with limited ingredients, right? It's like a candy store here at a culinary school, right? It's like,
It must be so cool.
there's stuff everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But you're very intentional and specific, for the learner with regard to how many ingredients. So how do you maximize that flavor again without giving away the secrets?
Yeah. Well,
and the nutrition piece, that's so key.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
my latest cookbook, Skinnytaste Simple, is has the most challenging for me because it uses 7 ingredients or fewer. So that was a little more challenging to maximize flavor, yet still be healthy and, make it, well, the book is called Simple. So that is definitely my easiest cookbook for anyone who's going to use a cookbook and want it cooked light and healthy with few ingredients. And to do so, I had to really get creative by using really great condiments, in-season produce, lots of fresh herbs, spices. And meanwhile, I'm thinking about like, does the dish have enough protein? Does it have enough vegetables? Am I adding fiber? So it's really balancing all those together.
And in terms of taking it a step further, I'm really curious how do you work with nutritionists? Is that a very specific way that you connect? Yeah.
I've been working with Heather K. Jones. She's a registered dietitian since my first cookbook. And we've been working together on all my books. She's also works with me on my website. She does all the nutritional information for all the books. She, fact checks everything. She's my resource when I have questions, if an ingredient is clean, because I'm also really about clean ingredients, clean eating, organic, trying to eat it organic when possible, looking at the ingredient list on items just to make sure that there's not a lot of ingredients. There are ingredients you can pronounce. So she's always been very helpful when it comes to those questions.
I'm super curious, like what comes first, right? The chicken or the egg? Is it the concept, the recipe, the development, and then the nutrition piece? Or do you start with, hey, I want to go this route with the nutrition and I add the recipe base? Or is it kind of a blend of both?
It's funny because I guess because I've been doing this so long that many recipes now I could kind of know the range, but I still do. So like I'll test a recipe and then I'll do the nutrition. And if it's off, if it seems like, well, this could use more protein or this might be a little too calorie dense, let me just tweak it, so then I can just tweak it easily. But I already have the formula since I've been doing this so long. I know that if I'm going to make a fatty beef stew or pork roast, then I'm probably going to balance it with more, leaner, like lighter vegetables and, not so much fat because there's already a lot of fat in it. So it's just all about balancing the dish.
Well, and the lesson there is, without even saying it, it takes time. You've been doing this for a long time. Some of it becomes inherently part of your DNA. And not that it's a challenge, but the enthusiasm that young students have today, because they see this happening, they're swiping, and they want to make it happen immediately as well. So I guess the lesson there is patience. And
I also have to say that you can look on someone's social media site and see these beautiful videos and all their recipes look amazing. And how are they coming up with so much content? And everything is always great. And they're so viral all the time. And you're not really seeing like the struggles that happen on behind the scenes, the stress they're going through, how much time all their failures. There's a lot of like failures, not just great recipes.
I'm
like
sure.
I test recipes some recipes can be tested up to 5 times if they don't work. Sometimes it's frustrating because I'm like, I'm so close. And, once in a while you get lucky and you nail it on the first round. So I think sometimes that comparison thing can be a struggle. Things seem so perfect from on social media when maybe it's really, not everything it seems.
No, that's well said. We're going to get to all things cookbooks in just a minute. But you also offer meal plans and online stores. So many moving parts that have, come into play probably over time, different components to your business. I'm just curious, very, very tough question, but how do you juggle it all? Again, I'm trying to think of it from the student's perspective. You moved away from having a full-time job, starting this, and now this is your life, your life's work. How do you juggle it all? How do you prioritize, I guess, is a better way to say it.
Yeah. I have a lot of recipes on my website, over 2,000. So really my focus is always the recipes first. People through time have asked me, what appliance do you use? What is your favorite knife set? So it's really easy for me to, instead of constantly answering the same questions, just, share the links to these items on my site and just have a place where they live so that people could just have a resource. And I have help. I don't do it all on my own. I have someone who helps me with the meal plans. It went from me doing everything to, delegating and having people help, whether it's somebody you're using part-time, maybe it's someone in your kitchen, but it's very hard to do it all. So if I am giving people the impression that I do it all, then it's very misleading.
Yeah. No, again, super humble. I asked a Michelin. This is really funny. I was at a Michelin starred restaurant, and I have a good relationship with the chef. And we had an event and all this, and he and I were just talking in the back. And again, same thing. There's just a lot of moving parts, lots of things going on. And I probably asked kind of a silly question. I just said, hey, the menu's beautiful, the dishes, the way they come together. Do you ever let the team sort of, just kind of run the show? And his response was just no. I mean, no. Yeah, it's all in his head. It's his ideas. They certainly have to execute it.
Right.
But that's it's a lot of pressure, if everyone's constantly looking to Gina for everything.
I feel a lot of pressure with cookbooks because they're paying for it. And I always hope, did I choose the right recipes? Did I choose the right mix? Are they going to like this? Because they're paying for it up front. A lot of them are pre-ordering. They don't know what they're going to get until it's in their hands. Every single book I've ever put out, I've always stressed about them not liking it, or is it going to do well? And then it always worked out that they did love it, and it did well. Every book hit the New York Times bestsellers list. So I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself.
And that's probably why it works so well, because you really care, right? It comes through in your words and your recipes. Well, let's talk more about cookbooks. You launched your newest cookbook in September. Skinnytaste, simple, easy, healthy recipes with 7 ingredients or fewer. I saw, I Googled Good Morning America segment, the one pot pasta with the tomatoes and sausage.
Yeah.
You know what I love about that is that we've probably all done something like that. To your point, my daughter's birthday was over the weekend, so Gretchen did this very similar to that, but with kale, and we use turkey instead of beef and that sort of thing. I just have to ask some of the very cliche questions, because it's after 6 cookbooks and then all of them, hitting New York Times bestseller. Here comes number 7. What was the inspiration for this cookbook that might be a little bit different than the other cookbooks?
Yeah. So out of all my cookbooks, this one is the simplest, easiest cookbook out of every single one. So I constantly hear people tell me they want to eat healthy, but they don't have time to cook. And so that's a big struggle for people. Also, with this economy, they're on a budget, they're trying to save money. So this book really solves that problem. You're only using 7 ingredients. They're easy to find ingredients that you can find in the supermarket. They're not expensive. And yet a lot of the recipes are under 30 minutes, or they're slow cooker recipes, or they're one pot, one dish. So it's really simple, and yet it's still nutritious, and it's still helping people make dinner, put dinner on the table when they get home late from work, and still, provide a meal for their family that's nutritious and healthy. So
And plan ahead too, right?
exactly.
So one of the challenges that many face, whether you're a home cook or just taking care of your family, is finding that right balance between convenience and then, of course, health. Something it's clear that you've thought about.
Yes.
With this new book specifically, how do you or how should someone strike that balance?
I think this book solves that problem. I think that this is a great point where I could plug the book. Like this book is that solution. It does just that. It strikes all those things. It's, convenient, it's inexpensive, it's simple, it's quick, it's healthy. So it really does just that.
See how we did that? That was the perfect lead into the plug,
it.
right? Well, and another plug too is it's probably the same advice for those who are looking, flip it the other way, to make the healthier meal or make healthier meal choices overall without sacrificing time, and most importantly, without sacrificing taste, right? And the book does that for them.
Exactly.
You put all of that thought into that. That's
always
wonderful.
like the most important part.
Yeah. And I'm going to get to the most important question in just a minute, but this can go on. So many questions, that I know, students have. As someone who's achieved incredible success, is there that one piece of advice that you might have? And I was going to ask it sort of just for aspiring chefs or culinary students, but it's really, what's that piece of advice for anyone where you kind of wrap the key lessons that you've learned along the way? Not that others should avoid those obstacles and mistakes, but if there was at least one key lesson or mistake that you wish you didn't make,
Okay.
what would that be?
I think one of the things about me being a home chef and creating these New York Times best-selling cookbooks, it took me a little while to get over that imposter syndrome. Like, I don't belong here. Why? Like, I am not good enough because I didn't go to culinary school. So that, I think it took me a little while to get past that challenge of like realizing, people are buying my books because there is a market for this and people love cooking healthy, and I am definitely helping people. So that I definitely think was a little bit of a challenge that I think I struggled with the first book. Being on television, it was all new to me. Like I was not an extrovert, so I didn't sign up for like all this media. So I also had to learn to be okay with that as an introvert. So that was definitely probably the biggest challenge I think I had with just doing all of this.
No, I think that is an amazing answer, to be honest. I wasn't expecting that. So the message there is, believe in yourself a little bit, right? Yeah.
Like just even though like I don't love being on television. I've learned to get better at it. But yet here I keep doing new books, and I know that every time I do a book, I'm going to be on TV. So, but I love doing the books so much that I'm willing to do the television. So like my priority is really just sharing with the world these books and remembering that it's really just about sharing with the world. And what, I had to like shift my focus on what is it that makes me so uncomfortable about TV? I think it's the live portion of the aspect of it. And I don't get to do it every day. So I do it every time a book comes out. I do it, once every 2-3 years. I don't really do it enough to be like good at it. And I think I like to be really good at something. I think that's the thing, is like, I really love to be, maybe the perfectionist in me wants it to be perfect. And I don't know what's going to happen when I'm live on TV. Like, am I going to make a mistake? I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. So I had to learn to work on that.
Well, you do really well with it. And maybe that's why you do so well, because you take it seriously. You're a perfectionist. You want it to go well. But I think what I'm taking from all of this is that your passion is really trying to, improve the lives of others, through your
Okay.
words and pictures. And it's a beautiful thing, Gina. And I
Thank
love
you.
that. And before I let you go, this is the toughest question of all.
I've been thinking
And
about it the
after
whole
7 books,
time.
I know it's going to drive you
I don't
crazy.
even, I'm like, do I have an answer for that?
The ultimate dish. What is it, Gina?
So funny because I could tell you a different answer. And does this ultimate dish have to be my recipe?
It can be anything that you want it to be. It could be a memory, right?
Yeah.
Something that inspired you. Could be one of your mom's Colombian
You know
dishes.
what? One of the recipes that I make all the time for my family that is really probably one of the things I first learned to cook as a dinner and that people make on my website and what's in one of my books is my mom's picadillo, which is a Cuban dish. And she had learned it from a Cuban friend of hers. And growing up, she made it all the time. When my friends came over for dinner, they always wanted to eat over. My kids love it. And I just love seeing so many people making her recipe. It's just so nice to see your family's recipes being made by thousands of people in the world. So it's really special.
There you go. See, that wasn't so hard.
Not too
You know,
hard.
you know what was really cute about that is that you asked me like, does it have to be one of my recipes or could it be some other recipe?
Well,
You're a
because
perfectionist.
like, what is the ultimate dish? Is it like your last dish that you want to have on your last day on earth? Is it, so like it could be like so many things. Is it something you just enjoy cooking because other people enjoy it? It's a tough question.
It is a tough question, right? And everyone has a different response. I've had people give me like a 7-course menu because
Wow.
they couldn't just give you one answer. But
Yeah.
most answers are the ones that come from
I
the
love
heart.
comfort food and home cooking and things that
Yeah.
just feel like home.
Well, this was an amazing chat. I love your backdrop. Your puppies were so good.
They were so good. I'm very impressed.
Treats for everybody. Treats for
Yes, they get
everybody.
treats.
We'll
Thank
be
you
in
so
touch.
much,
But
Kurt.
Gina, thank you so much. Really,
I really enjoyed
really.
this.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.